Good afternoon. On behalf of our New York Regional Director, Jeff Baylor, I would like to thank you for joining us for today's Data Summit topic, Census Bureau Data for Emergency Management. We're delighted to have you with us to broaden your knowledge during our expansive Data Summit series. My name is Roberto Fragoni, Media Specialist for the New York region, and I am your host for today. Before I go into the agenda, I'd like to cover some basic information and house rules. This session is being recorded. This summit will be recorded for the benefit of attendees and other stakeholders who are unable to be present. For those who do not wish to be recorded, please take this time to opt out and drop from this session. We are going to be sharing lots of great information and links to further resources during this event. A link to a recording of today's session will be sent out to all attendees once it is available. In addition, for your convenience and future reference, please expect a PDF with the embedded information links and resource sheet for today's presentation within 48 hours. Because of the large number of participants on this webinar, all attendees' microphones will have been muted. We encourage everyone to utilize the chat for any questions or feedback. To ask a question in the chat, you will need to use the drop-down menu, scroll down, select the Everyone option, and then write your question in the chat and hit Enter. Due to the volume of participants, we may not be able to answer all questions. For any questions that are not answered, please visit ask.census.gov. For any media-related inquiries regarding apportionment or redistricting, please reach out to the Public Information Office at pio@census.gov. The data dissemination team's point of contact will be provided near the end of this presentation. And again, this webinar is being recorded. Designed for the novice data user, today's Data Summit on Emergency Management will provide an overview of several emergency management data tools and digital resources available on census.gov that help make census data easier to access and use. At the conclusion of today's session, you will have an increased awareness of the vast products available through the U.S. Census Bureau website, including On the Map for emergency management, as well as the COVID-19 Data Hub. You'll learn to navigate the Enterprise Data Access Tool and other resources on census.gov to assist with planning, response, and recovery for natural disasters and emergency management and emergencies, and be better equipped to utilize some of the free online tools such as the Census Business Builder Regional Analyst Edition for what-if planning at the state and local level. Now let's walk through today's program. Our agenda will include opening remarks from Dennis Holt, Health Data Analyst with the Bureau of Public Health for the state of New Hampshire. Following our partner remarks, we will introduce our presenters, Erlene K.P. Dowell, Program Analyst with the U.S. Census Bureau, and Andrew W. Haight, Survey Statistician and Economist with the U.S. Census Bureau. After our key presenters, we will have a moderated Q&A session facilitated by my colleague, Sarah Maleka, following by a wrap-up of today's program. Before I turn it over to our speakers, I'd like to provide a high-level update on the 2020 census. Thanks to you, our partners, we were successful in meeting the goal of the 2020 census, to count everybody once, only once, and in the right place. As you may be aware, the apportionment data was released to the public on April 26, showing that our nation has grown by 7.4%. That's more than 22.7 million people since our last decennial count in 2010. As you can see, a link to the full release of the apportionment data is in the presentation, which again will be shared with you via email after this summit. Due to modifications to processing activities, COVID-19 data collection delays, and the Census Bureau's obligation to provide high-quality data, states are expected to receive redistricting data by August 16th in legacy or untabulated format. The full redistricting data with toolkits for ease of use will be delivered by September 30th. the Census Bureau will notify the public prior to releasing the data. For more information on redistricting, including links to geographic support products, such as maps, tables, and files, visit the Redistricting Press Kit link at the bottom of the page when you receive the PDF of the presentation. And again, any media-related inquiries on apportionment or redistricting should be referred to the Public Information Office at pio@census.gov. All other inquiries should be directed to 301-763-INFO or ask.census.gov. Now on to our program. Now I'd like to welcome Dennis Holt, Health Data Analyst in the Bureau of Public Health for the state of New Hampshire. Mr. Holt has been working in public health since 2010 and has implemented the Social Vulnerability Index for the state of New Hampshire. He has been a key player in estimating the small area New Hampshire population by town, census tract, sex, 5-year age group, and has spearheaded the time series study on heat index on hospitalization and death. Please extend a warm welcome to Dennis Holt. Dennis, thank you for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Emergency management and public health happen locally. Census data is an essential input to understanding our communities at the town and census tract level. The decennial census and the population estimate program at Census provides the foundation for us to make accurate estimates of population by sex and age at the local level. Also, the American Community Survey conducted by Census is the best information we have on many community characteristics that inform social vulnerability, social determinants of health, and barriers the public face in an emergency. For example, ATSDR at CDC developed a social vulnerability index after the experience in New Orleans with Hurricane Katrina showed that poor communities have suffer more and recover slower. In New Hampshire, our public health regions have used the Social Vulnerability Index based on American Community Survey data at the census tract level to inform emergency preparedness planning and community interventions related to community resilience. We are grateful for this webinar helping groups throughout our region become familiar with these data resources.
Thank you, Dennis. The Census Bureau is so fortunate to have such a long list of supportive and helpful partners across the region. From an impressive list of elected officials to a robust collection of nonprofit and philanthropic agencies, our incredible partners have done plenty of heavy lifting to help us reach their constituents for today's Data Summit. We hope you will have the chance to take a closer look at these pages once you receive the presentation. And we would like to once again thank each and every one of you for helping to make our Census Data Summit series a success across the nation. For that, we are very grateful. Now let's continue with our program. I'd like for you to help me welcome our two presenters. Erlene Dowell is a program analyst for the Data User Trade and Outreach branch at the U.S. Census Bureau. Ms. Dowell has been promoting and training people on the longitudinal employer household dynamics products for over 11 years. Prior to joining the LEHD program, Ms. Dowell played a key role during the 2010 census in the Public Information Office and taught communications courses at the College of Southern Maryland. Ms. Dowell received her master's degree in communications, a bachelor's degree in public relations from Hawaii Pacific University, and a master's certificate in business analysis from Duke University. Also presenting today is Andrew W. Haight, survey statistician and economist with the U.S. Census Bureau. Mr. Haight is an economist and serves as the data product and data user liaison in the Economic Management Division at the U.S. Census Bureau. With over 30 years of service at the Bureau, he advises on economic data products and conducts data user training and outreach for the Economic Census, and the Census Bureau's other economic survey programs. He co-leads the team that built the COVID-19 Data Hub. Mr. Haight is also a lead designer and coordinates development of the Census Business Builder, an innovative data tool that presents selected demographic, business, and other data in a user-friendly, map-based interface. Mr. Haight holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Syracuse University and a master's certificate in project management from George Washington University. Erlene Dow, thank you for joining us, and take it away.
Andy and I thank you for that introduction, Roberto. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon as my colleague Andy and I present Census Bureau data for emergency management. As Roberto said, during this presentation, we will be covering the Census Bureau's emergency management page and all the goodies it has to offer. Some of the features we'll be going over in more detail include the On the Map for emergency management with a skosh on how you can use its sister map, On the Map for planning as well. Then Andy will cover the COVID Hub, which just won a Special Achievement in GIS Award and Census Bronze Medal, Andy being one of the core team members of the development of this data tool. And then Andy will close out the webinar going over the what ifs situations using the Census Business Builder Regional Analyst Edition. Here's a screenshot of the emergency management page. We will go live and to look at all of these features. So here at the census.gov webpage, the easiest way to get there is if you click on the Browse by Topic, and then it's at the bottom of the first column and you click on Emergency Management. And there you go, done. And then the next thing you can do is look at the View Events. And then up pops up about 6 different events. So we have earthquakes, floods, hurricanes, pandemics, tornadoes, and wildfires. Oh my. If I click on earthquakes, it takes me to another page. And this has a definition of earthquakes along with a list of the latest earthquakes in the US and US territories. You can even go further and click on 2020 Puerto Rico earthquakes. And it takes you to another page that gives you a brief description of a series of 5 earthquakes that happened between December 2019 and January 2020. Also in this case, there is a table from CBB from the regional analysts with a list of reports and tables to municipals impacted and how to use the CBB, and then also national news releases and other related informations and sites. So let's go back to the home page. And now the next feature we have is currently showing recent events. So here on the recent events, we can see that 2021 Tropical Storm Elsa is here. But what others don't know is that 2021 Tropical Storm Elsa was a hurricane, but by the time she hit the US, she had been downsized to a tropical storm. Elsa was actually the first hurricane of the 2021 hurricane season. We can also see 2020 Hurricane Ada, and then Hurricane Zeta, Hurricane Delta, and Sally. Same as before, you can click on the event for more information, and it will take you to another page with details about the storm or hurricane and news releases. And then here you can go ahead and click on. And as I said, you can see all the different things. Same thing, you can see news releases and other related sites and related information that might help out. Okay, back to the home page. If you scroll down further, you can see the coronavirus pandemic, and you can also see NOAA's National Weather Service weather forecast offices. So the National Weather Service Weather Forecast Office, say that 3 times fast, which has a table that gives you direct links to the maps and reports in CBB and for all 122 weather forecast offices. Then if I click on the coronavirus pandemic, it takes you to another page with the news release of the COVID Data Hub and a link to its dashboard. It also has economic and demographic information. And then we also have the Census Business Builder. And then there's also American Community Survey video and visualizations with a press kit and news releases regarding the virus and related information and resources. Going back to the home page. Next, under the list, we can look at the different programs. So here we can see that there's the household and the small business pulse surveys and the school pulse surveys. And these are current surveys about the impact of COVID-19 on households, small businesses, and schools. Then comes the 5 different data tools, which include the COVID-19 Data Hub, On the Map for Emergency Management, Census Business Builder, Community Resilience, and finally the data.census.gov data tools. And if I just continue to scroll down, we can see also again news releases, and then we come to America Count Stories, and then also visualizations. And all of these have to do with emergency management. So I'll go back to our PowerPoint. And I'll click the next one. And so here, let's talk about one of the data tools being discussed today, which is On the Map for Emergency Management. On the Map for Emergency Management is a public data tool that provides an intuitive web-based interface for accessing U.S. population and workforce statistics in real time for areas being affected by natural disasters. The tool allows users to retrieve reports containing detailed workforce, population, and housing characteristics for hurricanes, floods, wildfires, winter storms, and federal disaster declaration areas. In 2020, for the first time in history, all 50 states were declared federal disaster areas due to COVID-19. But at the same time, the pace of hurricanes, floods, wildfires, and winter storms continued to affect communities already dealing with the pandemic emergency. Communities were overwhelmed, and so was the U.S. Census Bureau's award-winning On the Map for Emergency Management data tool. As each state became a disaster or emergency declaration area, real-time data updates on hurricanes, floods, and wildfires and winter storms were updated but was drowned out by the nationwide swath of COVID-19 disaster areas. In order to see national weather events, the on-the-map emergency management tool had to be redesigned to help users identify and focus on specific events other than COVID-19. Each natural disaster was organized and grouped by individual threats and clearly displayed on the map. On the Map for Emergency Management has been named mission critical by the Department of Commerce. That means if anything should happen, such as a shutdown, the application will continue to be available to the public. On the Map for Emergency Management has population data from the American Community Survey and 2010 decennial. Economic data comes from the LEHD Origin Destination Employee Statistics, or LOADS data as it's known, along with data from other federal agencies. On the Map for Emergency Management tracks tropical storms and hurricanes, which is the green wind swath, floods, which are the yellow houses, and freezing temperatures and snowfalls that are the blue and pink snowflakes. This data comes from our sister agency, NOAA. On the Map for Emergency Management also tracks fires from the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Interior, which are the red flames. And finally, the map covers disaster declaration areas from the Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, as we all know it. And these events are the orange life preservers, or just orange areas. All of these data are combined with census data. We have data from 2010 through 2018 for most of the 50 states, including DC. You can customize the selection area as low as places or cities with disclosure protection. And output reports are available, which means you can export shapefiles and download print reports and maps. You can also share event links on social media or with colleagues. In 2020, there were a total of 7 major hurricanes. Major hurricanes are classified with winds up to 111 miles per hour or more. 3 of those 7 hurricanes made landfall in the U.S. They included Hurricane Laura, Hurricane Delta, and Hurricane Zeta. On the Map for Emergency Management can assist in identifying vulnerabilities, social vulnerabilities, physical vulnerabilities, and economic vulnerabilities. Using the ACS, we can see social and physical vulnerabilities. We can see households with one or more people 65 years or over. We can see if they are disabled, and we can see house heating fuel or year structure was built, to name a few physical vulnerabilities. Using the decennial data, we can access the physical vulnerabilities, whether a house is occupied or vacant. And to understand the economic vulnerabilities of the event using the loads data, we can look at a total number of workers in the impacted area, the industry impacted in the area, and earnings for money lost to workers in the impacted area. When Hurricane Laura made landfall in Louisiana, she was a Category 4 with 150 miles per hour winds. It was the 12th named storm and the 4th hurricane of the season. It was the most powerful hurricane to make landfall in Louisiana since 1850s, according to NOAA. The hurricane period was from August 22nd through the 27th, and FEMA deemed it a disaster declaration on August 28th. In this screenshot of Hurricane Laura using the On the Map for Emergency Management, we can see the impacted population of 414,737. And on the right side, you can see the funding distribution from FEMA. On the Map for Emergency Management allows you to dive deep into the geography. We can look at states, counties, and places or cities to discover the impact of the hurricane. Last year, Lake Charles was one of the cities hardest hit by the Hurricane Laura. Then Hurricane Delta cut a similar path through Lake Charles 6 weeks later. According to one article, it says there is $235 million in housing damage alone, and 6% of the population, which is 74,495 people, are displaced. Let's go live to look at the vulnerabilities of Lake Charles. So here, back on the emergency management page, I'm just going to go ahead and click on the map, and then it'll come up and I'll click on view more. So once I'm here in the search box, I'm just going to type in Laura, and then we have a filter. So this filter was put in due to COVID-19 in the redesign. So I'll go ahead and click off wildfires, floods, winter weather, and COVID-19. And I left disaster declaration areas just to, and as you can see, Hurricane Laura pops up automatically, but I wanted to also show you that if you know the disaster declaration area or the DR number, you can type that in. So I'm going to type in 4559, and then the disaster declaration comes up instead. The difference between the two, between the Hurricane Laura and the Federal Disaster Declaration link, is that you can actually link to FEMA's page about Hurricane Laura. But we're going to just continue with Laura. And you just click on the box that says Laura. And then once here, this is all about Laura. So you can see, as I mentioned earlier, the total population was 414,737, and that's from the ACS survey, and it's 2015 through 2019. So I also said that we were going to look at Lake Charles. So I'll click on this event area. And then under geography type, I'm going to click on the little caret and I'm going to click on places. And then you see Lake Charles pops up right away. And you can actually choose more than one, but I'm just going to focus on Lake Charles. So I'll click on select. And then it zooms into Lake Charles. And then now we can look at the social vulnerabilities. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, disability status by poverty status. So if I click on that and then click on the area below it, then the map updates and so does the chart. You can't really see the chart in this, but definitely go back and play with the data tool. And then you can also look at population 65 years and over, living alone. And then you can look at the physical vulnerabilities, such as the year structures were built. So one of the things that the article mentioned is that a lot of people lost their roofs during this hurricane. And so they are putting blue tarps on the roof. So there is a photo of just like, it's like blue tarp city of everyone's homes. And this is a year later and still they're waiting on more funding. They got funding, but now they're waiting on more funding. The other thing is you can look at the house heating fuel. And then if I scroll down, and we can look at the possibilities of those that have electricity in the event, and that there would be 20,597 people without power if the power should go out. All right, so then let's change it up a little bit. And we can look at the workforce employed area. Now we're just going to look at the big picture, which is just the event area for Hurricane Laura. And we can look at the earnings. So if we look at the earnings and we can see all of these workers and we can multiply 27,758 by 1250 per month, that's a lot of money. And even if you go to the third one with 77,776 earning more than 3,333, that's millions and millions of dollars. The next thing we can look for the economic vulnerabilities is the NAICS industry. So if I click on NAICS industry and I scroll down, automatically you can see construction, and here in the table you can see construction is the highest. Construction is the largest industry in that area that Hurricane Laura hit, which isn't helpful when you're trying to rebuild. All right, going back to the PowerPoint. So one more thing in preparation for natural disasters such as hurricanes, wildfires, and floods, and other disastrous events such as chemical spills and more. On the map can tell you workforce population of the impacted area during the day. So this application was actually motivated by 9/11. We needed data to tell us where people were during the day, and on the map connects where people live and where they work. So using administrative data from partnering states. Continuing to look at Lake Charles, we can see the inflow outflow analysis. And on the fly, this report tells us how many people travel into Lake Charles to work, how many work and live in Lake Charles, and those who travel out of Lake Charles to work. As an emergency responder, I think this information is helpful for evacuation purposes. Let's go live to look at this demonstration. So the easiest way to get to on the map from on the map for emergency management is here up in the top in the right-hand corner. There is a button to just go to on the map. And then once I'm here, I'll go ahead and type in Lake Charles. And then I'll click the search button. So if you've heard my webinars before, I always talk about how intuitive our data tools are. So once I click in Lake Charles, everything that has Lake Charles or Lake or Charles pops up in the geography and it's bolded. So I'm going to go ahead under places and click Lake Charles City, LA. And then a pop-up comes up and it tells us what selected area we have chosen. It tells us what the square miles are and how many census blocks are in this area. So very intuitive. It's got this big, bold, blue underlined perform analysis on selection area. So that's what I'll do. And once I do that, I go ahead and I have an analysis setting. So in this settings, it tells me in the first column, the home and work area. Then the second column gives us all the different analysis types. Then the year, it has 2018 all the way to 2002. And then it has job type. Job type is the main job that you have out there is the primary job. So that's the one that gives you the most income. All jobs is like if you have more than one job. So I'm just going to keep everything to the default. And if you're wondering what everything is, there are these little question marks at the top where you can hover over it. So I'll go ahead and click on go. And then very quickly, it shows me the map that I had in our PowerPoint. So you can see Lake Charles. And then you can see, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot to change it to inflow outflow. So sorry. So I clicked on this change settings down there in the corner. I'll click on go again. And there we go. So here's the inflow outflow, and it tells us the 26,243 going into Lake Charles, 13,209 working and living in Lake Charles, and then 13,071 coming out of Lake Charles to work. So as a responder, this is great information. You know, we can tell people to stay home. We can tell people to get out of Lake Charles and all of those things. So I'll stop sharing for now. And then, so I hope I was able to convince you how important census data is to emergency management planning in probability, present, and aftermath. Now I'll turn it over to Andy to continue how census data can be utilized for emergency management.
Great. Thank you so much, Arlene, and thank you for the wonderful introduction and the call out about the amazing award that we received at the Esri User Conference this year. It was really quite wonderful to be acknowledged by this amazing group of GIS professionals. I'm going to go ahead and show you all two particular additional data tools this afternoon in the next 15 minutes or so. As Erlene pointed out, the Census Bureau has an amazing wealth of data that help us understand current weather and natural events, as well as be able to look back into past events to see how many people were impacted by a particular event that occurred some years ago, and then to sort of then update those areas to see, well, how many people are still left in that particular area, you know, is it still being impacted, et cetera. The platform that I'm going to now show you is something called the COVID-19 Interactive Data Hub. As the Census Bureau was entering the pandemic with the rest of the nation, we realized that a lot of the data that we have at the Census Bureau could be very useful to help emergency managers and local health department officials and a wide variety of other users to help them understand how their particular communities might be impacted by the pandemic. Data from programs like the American Community Survey could be incredibly valuable to find communities that have a large percentage of people who are over 65, or people who are disabled, or people who don't have health insurance coverage. These types of data would be really useful, and as Dennis pointed out, these statistics are critical to help local groups understand the vulnerability of their particular communities. But the business data are important too, and knowing something about the business mix in a particular area that was potentially going to be impacted by the pandemic could help us understand how that area might be impacted. So in April of last year, we stood up something called the COVID-19 Interactive Data Hub. I'm going to go ahead and jump out here live so you can actually see this hub live. Since Erlene already did a wonderful job of showing you the emergency management page and how to get to the hub, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right ahead to the hub itself and show you some of those key features. So when we scroll down from the very top of the hub, we come to something called the Impact Planning Report. This report includes key demographic and business data at the state and county level that are related to key risk factors and other statistics related to the coronavirus pandemic. For example, we knew that households that had a large percentage of people who were disabled might be impacted more by the pandemic than those that don't have, communities that don't have a lot of disabled people. So we included information on disability status right over here on the page. This is a two-page dashboard, and of course you can download the data, print off the report, link to it, etc. Now, during the pandemic, we also stood up a number of special surveys specifically designed to not just understand the potential impacts of the pandemic, but the actual impacts. Programs like the Business Formation Statistics and Small Business Pulse Survey provide detailed information on how businesses and new businesses, in the case of business formations, were impacted by the pandemic. Community Resilience Estimates is a fantastic program. I could spend an hour talking just about CRE. If you are not familiar with that program, I would really encourage you all to check out this dashboard and check out the program. This has information about how resilient a particular community is down to the census tract level to risk factors specifically associated with the coronavirus pandemic. This program is being expanded to cover other types of natural disasters other than just the coronavirus. So that's available in here as well. And you can see some of the other programs that we stood up. Below there, we have a series of what we call policy maps. These are map-based displays of selected statistics from the COVID-19 Data Hub. As you can see over here, this is some information from our County Business Patterns program on the total number of employees and the payrolls, average annual payroll for those workers is available. There's actually 9 of these maps available. And then below there are 2 sections that allow you to actually access the bulk data. One of you on the call today was interested in accessing information from the Small Business Pulse Survey. Those data are available, but so are data from the American Community Survey And one of the things that we've done on this platform is the data are presented to you not just in the traditional CSV or Excel file format, but they are also available to you for download into a shapefile format, into a data layer format. So those of you who are GIS professionals, Geographic Information System professionals, and want to incorporate this data into your own maps, we've already done part of the work for you to prep that data so you can bring it right into ArcGIS. Scrolling down a little further is a section that we added back in January of this year. We were approached by FEMA, who had been curating a set of 38 data sets on the Argonne National Labs website, and they asked us if we would be interested in hosting some of that data on the Census COVID Hub. They were very happy with the COVID Hub so far, and they thought it would be great to expose these data sets to a much larger audience. As you can see from the slide here, or from the site, we said yes. So there are detailed data sets on PPP loans. So if you want to find out how many PPP loans were given to businesses in certain industries, in certain states and counties, those data from the SBA are available, as well as 43 other data sets. We're now up to 44. As I mentioned, we have those data sets download ability, and then there's a few other links here at the bottom. Now, just a month ago, we added a brand new part, which is the last thing I want to mention here on the Hub, is our data equity tools. As I'm sure many of you know, the President signed a directive that is now requiring federal and state agencies who are distributing resources to document that they are distributing those resources equitably. That those resources are being distributed not just to traditionally well-served communities, but also underserved communities. And we knew at the Census Bureau that some of the data tools that we have could be very useful to help these communities make the case that they are distributing those funds equitably. So these are the 5 tools that we have highlighted. Again, community resilience estimates, Arlene's local employment household dynamics suite of tools down here in the bottom left-hand corner, and Census Business Builder, which I'll be showing to you in just a minute. So these are tools, again, that help identify potentially underserved communities that these resources should be being distributed to. So with that, let me now jump out over to census.gov, and let's talk a little bit about Census Business Builder, that second data tool that I wanted to show you. Census Business Builder was first launched in 2015 as a way for entrepreneurs and small business owners to get to some selected information that they would need to help launch their business, to do their business plan. So we created something called the Small Business Edition of Census Business Builder that allows you to go in and actually access about 180 different demographic, socioeconomic, housing, and business statistics that allow you to incorporate that data into your business plan. About a year after the Small Business Edition was launched, we were approached by a group of Chamber of Commerce executives. And they said, we really love Census Business Builder, this Small Business Edition, but we want a version of CBB that we could use to help understand the communities and the markets that we serve in our Chambers of Commerce. As many of you, I'm sure, know, Chambers of Commerce often represent more than just a single county or a single city. You have regional chambers. So if I wanted to understand how many people and how many businesses are physically located in the area that is served by the Southern Maryland Chamber of Commerce, those 3 counties in Southern Maryland that they cover, they wanted a tool that would allow them to actually build those custom geographies that don't follow standard census geography and be able to aggregate that data for them. As you can see, we said yes. So when you click on the Regional Analyst Edition, the tool launches and allows you to go in and select the first geography that you're interested in building in terms of your region, and then be able to add to that level of geography to build your custom geography. Now, while this tool was first designed for community planners, for Chamber of Commerce executives and staff, et cetera. We also realized that the emergency management community could use this tool to help them do what-if analysis. If a nor'eastern storm were to hit the area in and around the Boston, Massachusetts metropolitan area, how many people, how many businesses would be impacted? So this tool can actually do that. So I'm going to start off with Suffolk County, which, as many of you know, I'm sure, is the county that Boston is physically located in. The application is now going to zoom me in to Suffolk County, Massachusetts, and right away we can see that there are 796,000 people that live in Suffolk County, Massachusetts. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so we can see a little bit more of some of the neighboring counties that are around there, because in my use case, I want to pretend that we've got a major nor'eastern storm coming in and affecting all of these counties in this northeastern area of the United States. And I want to build a custom geography that would let me understand how many people and how many businesses are in that area. The way that I would do that is I would click on Edit Region, and then one at a time, I would select each of the counties that I want to add to the region that I'm building. So we just added Essex County, Massachusetts. I'm now going to go over here, and I'm going to select the next county, which is Rockingham County, New Hampshire. We're going to add that to my region, and I could keep adding more and more counties to this area. The tool will let you add up to 25 geographies, and I could not only build my region from counties, as I am right now, but I could build the region from any of the levels of geography supported by Census Business Builder. I know it's probably hard to see in the upper left-hand corner, but the tool provides data at the state, metropolitan area, county, city, town, zip code, and even census tract levels. Now, these levels over here are grayed out because the map is zoomed out so far that if I tried to select tract, there's so many tracts in the Boston area, the map would take forever to load. Once I am done building that geography, and by the way, I can build geography either by selecting each of the geographies I'm interested in, the way I did, clicking on them one at a time, or I could actually draw a shape, a rectangle, a circle, or a polygon to select all of the areas that are inside or included in that particular area that I drew. And if I was a real GIS nerd and used a GIS application like ArcGIS, and I had a shape file that already defined those areas that I wanted to accumulate, I wanted to aggregate, I could upload that shape file right into Census Business Builder. I can then name that region. So let's just call this Boston area. And when I'm then done editing, it's now outlined that, in this case, 3-county area. Once I have done that, I can either continue to browse the data that is available in Census Business Builder. In addition to total population, as I mentioned before, we have over 170 unique data variables, demographic characteristics like age, race, and ethnicity, socioeconomic data like household income, educational attainment, disability status, et cetera, and even housing data on the number of single-family homes, house values, owner costs, things along those lines. We have a variety of business data that help me understand the businesses that are in this area, because an area that has a lot of businesses that might be adversely affected by a northeastern storm, it would be good to know that. If we have a critical resource business like a hospital in an area that might be in a flood zone, again, a good thing to kind of know. So we have that information available. We've even incorporated some building permits data in Census Business Builder, and even some data on consumer spending that Esri actually compiles every year that we included in CBB. Once I am done browsing the data on the map, I can then click on Create Region Report. And what the application is then going to do is it's going to build a custom report for me for that 3-county region that will summarize and tabulate all of the demographic, socioeconomic, housing, and business data that we have in CBB. So it'll let me then know these are the number of people that would likely be impacted if a northeastern storm were to hit these 3 counties. So hopefully you can see that this tool, again, would be helpful from an emergency management standpoint to do that what-if planning. If a hurricane were to come up the Chesapeake Bay and strike all the zip codes on the eastern and the western shores of the Chesapeake in Maryland and Virginia and Delaware, how many people, how many businesses might be impacted by that hurricane? This tool lets you do that kind of custom analysis. And the last thing I want to mention about CBB is both the map and the report can be bookmarked. When Erlene was showing you the emergency management page, she mentioned to you that we had pre-designed links to all of the counties that were impacted by Hurricane Laura. It was included in that long list of tables. The way that we did that is, again, by bookmarking this application, and by clicking on that email, clicking on that link, it would bring me right back to this map looking exactly the way it looks right now. So let me jump quickly back out to my PowerPoint slide, and we'll kind of summarize where we are. So we just walked through a quick demo of Census Business Builder, a lot of great data available in this. Yes, we are going to be sharing these PowerPoint slides with you, and yes, the links to Census Business Builder, as well as the COVID Hub and the tools that Erlene showed you are available in here. We would encourage you all to go into here and play with this and access these data tools yourself. So again, to summarize, we want you to continue to use these tools for these ongoing weather and other events, and we definitely want you to send us your feedback. For those of you who may already have been familiar with Census Business Builder, you may have noticed that it has changed a lot over the 5 or 6 years that it has been going. We just released version 3.4 a couple of months ago. In October, we are going to be releasing version 4.0, a fairly substantial update that's going to add even more information, including potentially some data from the decennial census that we're actually going to include 2020 decennial data. So we really want your feedback, things that you like about these tools, things that you don't. And for those things that you don't like, please, again, let us know about those, because we have made a lot of changes based upon feedback that we've received. So with that, let me turn it back over to Sarah so she can go ahead and coordinate our Q&A session.
This is Roberto. Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Erlene, for the fantastic presentation. You've covered a lot of ground, and I know we have some questions that are coming through the chat. So here to facilitate the Q&A portion of our program is my colleague, Sarah Maleka, Partnership Specialist for the New York region. Take it away, Sarah.
Thank you, Roberto. We will now be taking questions from our audience for today's speakers. We encourage everyone to utilize the chat feature. So be sure to address your questions to the everyone option so that we can see your questions. You may have to scroll to the bottom of the attendee chat list. Due to the number of participants in today's session, we may not be able to answer all your questions, but after today, for any questions that are not answered, you can visit ask.census.gov. Let's go ahead and get started with some of the questions from the chat. We saw today that Alaska just had an 8.2 magnitude earthquake today. Is the weather data being captured in real time? And when does event data get updated on census.gov?
I'll go ahead and talk about on the map for emergency management for that one. So we don't cover earthquakes just because we don't have that data to predict or watch the earthquake happening. But Andy, do you have anything regarding the emergency management page? I know I did see that Alaska had that 8.2. That was huge, 8.2 earthquake.
Yeah, what I'd say, Earlene, and I think this is the case, while we don't have a data feed that captures information on earthquakes, if that area is declared a disaster declaration area, then yes, on the map for emergency management would cover then that area. Isn't that correct, Earlene?
Yes, up until I think we have data from Alaska up until 2016, maybe 2017. I'm not sure. They are no longer one of our state partners, so.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that the short answer to that question is that the other types of disasters that are covered by On the Map are updated regularly, multiple times a day, via feeds that we get from other federal agencies like NOAA, et cetera. So I think that's the short answer to that question. Is that right, Earlene?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. And we do, you know, if the impacted area, as Andy said, is a federal disaster declaration, it still participates with the American Community Survey. So you will still see population data for that.
Okay, great, thank you. And this question is directed to Andrew. Is it possible for the Census Business Builder or the COVID-19 Data Hub to be embedded in a city or town's own emergency management page so that local stakeholders can access it more easily?
Yeah, it's a great question, and thank you for asking it. Currently, there's a couple of ways that you could actually embed, if you will, and I'll use the generic term embed, links to Census Business Builder and the COVID Hub on your site. As I mentioned, CBB allows you to bookmark those maps and reports. So you could certainly put the link to that map or report on your website, and when a user clicked it, it would actually launch Census Business Builder as if it was running on your own organization's page, and a lot of people have done that. We are actually working right now on a way to literally, using the capital E, embed, add an embed feature into both Census Business Builder and the COVID-19 Data Hub. There are components of the COVID Hub that can be currently embedded. In fact, if you scroll through the page, you'll see some places where it actually has a link that says embed, where you can actually take that map, that policy map, for example, and actually have it appear right on your organization's website as if you were the one who built it. But yes, we realize that a lot of people were going to want to be able to take these materials and put them on their own sites.
Okay, thank you. And a number of attendees have asked what data sources we use for some of these tools. Could each of you talk about some of the source surveys for these tools, and also comment on how the Census Bureau calculates margin of error?
Sure. So I'll start with Census Business Builder. Currently, we feed, if you will, Census Business Builder with data from 8 Census Bureau programs, as well as an additional 3 or 4 programs from other agencies. All of the demographic data come from the 5-year ACS American Community Survey 5-year estimates. So all of those demographic, socioeconomic, and housing characteristics are from the 5-year estimates. The business data come from county business patterns, non-employer statistics, the economic census. We also have some data from our annual business survey, which is the program that provides information on the race, ethnicity, gender, and veteran status of the business owner. And we've incorporated some of Earlene's quarterly workforce indicators data in Census Business Builder as well. From the other federal agencies, and I mentioned about building permits too, from the other federal agencies, we had a lot of requests for wages data, which we do not have per se at the Census Bureau. So we incorporated data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics Quarterly Census of Employment and Wages, the QCEW program. That is in Census Business Builder. and because census doesn't cover the agriculture sector in our business data, USDA does. We've incorporated USDA data. All of those source statements, so as you're working your way through Census Business Builder and selecting the data variables you want to view on the map, throughout those menus are source statements embedded in the tooltips. So if you put your cursor over one of those items, you'll get a pop-up that will then tell you what program that data came from. And when you create the report in Census Business Builder, those source statements are included right in with the data, so you know exactly where it came from. Erlene will need to speak to where the data comes from for the On the Map tool and her other tools. And honestly, I'm probably not the right person to be talking about how we physically calculate margins of error. It's a fairly long and complex formula, but I'm happy to actually put my email address in the presentation or in the chat. And if you want to contact me, I will put you in touch with the folks in our mathematical statistical area who are very well versed in how we calculate margins of error. Actually, there's my email address right there in the contact us slide. So go ahead and send me a note. Arlene, you want to talk about source for the
Yes.
year data?
Yes, and I did actually put in a link regarding something that I found on the census website for the margin of error, if you can find that. For the On the Map for emergency management, the data sources are, the obvious for the disaster declarations, which is NOAA and the Department of Agriculture and Department of Interior, along with FEMA. But the other sources, like the population and the economic information, it comes from the American Community Survey, and you saw that it was 2015 to 2019, and then also from the 2010 decennial, which will be updated as soon as, probably next year. I hope that would be updated. The other information, which is all the workforce population, that comes from a partnership that my program, the Longitudinal Employer Household Dynamics program, has a partnership with the Local Employment Dynamics Partnership, which is just basically we have partnerships with all the states, and the states send us their administrative records, which include the unemployment insurance wage records along with the quarterly census of employment wages. So we combine that with all of the censuses and surveys that we have at Census, and we create these data products. And so LEHD actually has 7 data tools and 5 data sets. So that's the answer to that question. Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. And we had another question about which areas are included. So in addition to the 50 states, are the U.S. territories such as Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, Northern Mariana Islands, Guam, and American Samoa also included in these maps and data hubs?
So I'll go first, Andy, because my answer will be quick. If it's included, if there is the American Community Survey and the 2010 decennial. However, we do not have information for the territories for the LEHD products. So if you're looking at the map, we have data regarding Puerto Rico if there's like Hurricane Maria.
Right. And I'll say it's sort of a similar answer for the COVID hub and for Census Business Builder. The programs that we pull from, they are the ones that basically who decide what geographies are and are not going to be covered. So, for example, the American Community Survey data that is available in Census Business Builder would also include the Puerto Rico Community Survey. So that does include data for Puerto Rico, but we don't conduct a demographic survey like the ACS for the other 4 U.S. territories, for the Virgin Islands, American Samoa, Guam and Commonwealth of Northern Mariana Islands. So we do not include those. So it's driven basically by whether or not we have a program at Census that provides that data, and in many cases we don't.
And we also have a question about the raw data. Is the underlying data available through open web services that would allow other organizations to retrieve the data for custom areas, perhaps for secondary analysis?
Yeah, that's a great question. So both for the data sets that Erlene has talked about and for the data that we have in Census Business Builder and the COVID Hub, almost all of that data is available for developers and others to use on the Census Bureau's data API. So if you go to census.gov and choose developers from our data tools topical page, it'll bring you to a site where you can learn more about how you can access those APIs. In fact, all of the data in Census Business Builder comes in via API. So when you saw that map being built dynamically, it was literally right as we were doing it, pulling in the data from the API as the map was being built. And we have greatly expanded the data sets that are available on the Census API over the last few years because we realize so many people don't want to just simply download census data, which they've been able to do for decades, but they actually want to incorporate that data on the fly into their own mapping products and their own dashboards and their own applications, where the data gets pulled in on the fly and they don't have to curate that data for us. We hold on to it and they just pull it as they need it. So yes, we do have that available.
And I went ahead and put in the link for the lehd.ces.census.gov/data, and that's where all of our raw data is provided also. So it's just all easy to get to there.
Okay, great. And just to wrap up for questions for today, we know that by September 30th, data from the decennial census or 2020 census will be released. Will any of this data be added to any of your tools, in particular the Census Business Builder?
Yeah, we actually are planning on incorporating the decennial census data into CBB. We are still deciding specifically what variables, what data elements from the decennial census will be incorporated, and what levels of geography. We certainly will bring in the decennial data at the levels of geography that are currently supported by CBB, so down to the census tract levels. Whether we actually show block, group, and block, that still is being discussed. But yes, we recognize that incorporating that decennial data is going to be really important to a lot of folks. When we do so, I just want to let everybody know, we are not going to be removing the American Community Survey data because there are a host of data variables that are only available from the ACS that are not available from the decennial census. So there's definitely still a lot of value in having the ACS data in Census Business Builder and our other tools like it that then supplement or are supplemented by the decennial census data. So yeah, great question.
And yes, eventually 2020 decennial will be put into on the map for emergency management too.
Okay, that's great news. So that wraps up our question and answer session for today. Just wanted to thank everyone for contributing your valuable questions. If we didn't get to your question, please direct those questions to ask.census.gov. Back to you, Roberto.
Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, Erlene and Andy, for that great presentation. And that concludes our Q&A portion. Continuing on what's been discussed, I would like to show you some very important resources before you go. Because if you enjoyed today's summit, there's a lot more where that came from. There is so much at your fingertips on census.gov's Census Academy page. There, you can find valuable information on data dissemination and training. There are options to request a free data training for your organization free of charge. You can also receive our data gems, which are short how-to videos aimed at helping you increase your knowledge of census data. And guess what? We can deliver those directly to your inbox. And you can gain access to easy, learn at your own pace tutorials. We are really here for you. You can also interact with our instructors on the webinars. So to expand a little bit more on what I just said, the Census Bureau has a team of specialists who can assist in bringing the world of data to you by providing training, workshops, and presentations to you and your organization at no cost. Our team offers presentations and trainings tailored to the customer's needs, and they can show you a variety of census data tools, data sets, and programs, both virtually and in person. Though please note, in-person data services are currently suspended due to COVID restrictions. Our final data summit in the series will be taking place on August 10th on Census Bureau data for migrant workers, and we are releasing recorded versions of previous data summits on a flow basis. You can find all information on the 2021 Data Summit page on census.gov. In the search bar at the top, simply type in 2021 Data Summit Series to land at the page seen on this slide. To view them all, please be sure to click on Show More. Look to see which one suits your needs. It's a one-stop shop. Once available, you can find the recorded versions of each summit on this same 2021 Data Summit Series page. You can also contact your local partnership specialist for more information. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to know your thoughts because there is always room for improvement. There are two ways to tell us what you think about today's session. First, you may contact your regional office via phone or email. Allow me to provide you the contact information for the regional offices. Feel free to contact the regional office that handles your state, or as you've been doing over the last year, connect with your local partnership specialist for any of your needs or thoughts, and they will share them with us. Allow me to share with you some information about our regional offices. As you may know, the country is divided into 6 census regions. You may contact the regional office and partnership team by phone or email via the contact information in the following slides. The regions are Atlanta Regional Office with George Grandy Jr., Regional Director, the Chicago Regional Office with Marilyn A. Sanders, Regional Director, the Denver Regional Office with Kathy L. Lacey, Regional Director, the Los Angeles Regional Office with Julie Lamb as Regional Director, the New York Regional Office with Jeff T. Baylor as the Regional Director, and the Philadelphia Regional Office with Fernando E. Armstrong as Regional Director. There has been a wealth of information shared today. Our hope is that you leave this webinar feeling empowered with the confidence to access the data you need and make informed decisions and support the community you serve. Again, please expect a PDF and resource sheet for today's presentation within the next 48 hours. On behalf of my colleagues both in front and behind the scenes on this webinar, our team both in the New York region and headquarters, we want to thank our speaker, Dennis Holt, our wonderful presenters, Erlene Dowell and Andy Haight, and most of all, you, for your time, attention, questions, and continued partnership with the Census Bureau. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful afternoon.